She didn't build empires, she didn't lead armies, she didn't write books, and yet her name crossed centuries, influenced billions, and changed human history. A simple young woman from an almost forgotten town, chosen for something unimaginable. This is the story of Mary. Virgin Mary stretches across centuries as one of the most enduring narratives in Christian tradition, not because of visible power or human achievement, but because of the depth of a quiet surrender that helped shape the course of history. She does not emerge from a place of political influence or social prominence, but from a simple and even marginal setting within the ancient world. Likely born into a humble environment in Nazareth, Mary lived at a time when the Jewish people were under the rule of the Roman Empire, facing constant tension, limitations, and a deep longing for freedom. Her daily life was marked by ordinary tasks, family responsibilities, and a faith deeply rooted in the traditions of her people. At first glance, nothing suggested that her life would go beyond the boundaries of her small community and reach universal significance. However, at a decisive moment, her life took an unexpected turn. According to Christian tradition, Mary received a visit from the Archangel Gabriel, who announced that she would conceive a child through the Holy Spirit. This message was not only extraordinary, but also filled with serious and potentially dangerous implications. In a strictly structured society, a pregnancy outside of marriage could lead to severe social rejection, public shame, and even extreme punishment. Mary was not facing a simple or safe decision. Even so, her response reflected a level of trust that went beyond human understanding. By accepting this mission, she did not demonstrate control over what would come, but a complete openness to the unknown, sustained by faith. From that moment on, her life became a journey marked by constant challenges. Mary, who was betrothed to Saint Joseph, had to deal with the immediate consequences of her decision, including the need to explain a reality that was difficult to understand within her cultural context. According to the accounts, Joseph himself faced an internal struggle before choosing to remain by her side, which highlights the very human and concrete nature of their situation. This was not an idealized story from the beginning, but a series of real decisions made in the midst of uncertainty. The birth of Jesus Christ took place under circumstances equally marked by simplicity and hardship. Because of a census ordered by Roman authorities, Mary and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem, where they found no suitable place to stay. The child was born in an improvised setting, far from anything comfortable or dignified. This detail is not merely incidental, but highlights the contrast between the greatness of the event and the humility of its setting. The child who, according to Christian belief, represented the divine incarnation was born in conditions that reflected fragility, simplicity, and closeness to human reality. Shortly after the birth, the family faced a new threat. King Herod the Great, fearing the rise of a new king of the Jews, ordered the persecution of children in the region, forcing Mary and Joseph to flee with the child to Egypt. This escape reinforces the unstable and risky nature of the life Mary had accepted. She was not living a protected or comfortable story, but one marked by displacement, insecurity, and a constant need for trust. The family only returned to their homeland when the threat had passed, settling again in Nazareth and resuming what appeared to be an ordinary life. The following years are marked by a meaningful silence. Very little is known in detailed, historical terms about Mary's daily life during this period. This silence, however, does not indicate a lack of significance, but reveals an essential dimension of her experience: faithfulness in the ordinary. Mary accompanied Jesus as he grew, participated in his upbringing, and lived a life of work and simplicity without public recognition. Her presence was not defined by visible leadership, but by consistency and attentiveness to what had been entrusted to her. When Jesus began his public ministry, Mary appears in a discreet yet meaningful way. One of the most well-known moments takes place at the wedding in Cana, where she notices a concrete need and brings it to Jesus, demonstrating sensitivity and trust. This moment reveals an important aspect of her character: the ability to perceive others and act without seeking recognition. Her role is not central in a visible sense, but it influences the unfolding of events. As Jesus' mission progresses, tensions around him increase. He is questioned, criticized, and eventually rejected by religious and political authorities. Mary follows this process not as someone who controls or intervenes directly, but as someone who remains. This presence reaches its most intense point during the crucifixion. As her son is condemned and executed, Mary is there, witnessing a profound suffering she cannot prevent. Her pain is not described in excessive detail, but her presence at the foot of the cross is enough to convey the depth of her experience. The death of Jesus does not bring the story to an end, but opens the way for a new understanding within the Christian faith, especially through the belief in the resurrection. Mary remains within this context, no longer only as a mother, but as a witness to a process that goes beyond the usual logic of life and death. Her presence continues in the early Christian communities, associated with memory and the continuity of the message. Over the centuries, Mary came to be recognized under various titles and forms of devotion within Christian tradition. She is not remembered for long speeches or written works, but for the coherence between her faith and her actions. Her story raises fundamental questions about trust, surrender, and the role of the individual when faced with situations beyond their control. In a world that often values visibility, autonomy, and control, her life presents a significant contrast, pointing to a way of living based on conscious acceptance and ongoing fidelity. This narrative is sustained not only by extraordinary elements, but by the consistency of an initial choice that unfolds throughout an entire life. Mary did not understand every aspect of her mission from the beginning, nor was she given guarantees that the path would be easy. Even so, her decision to accept and remain faithful shaped not only her own life, but also how later generations would understand faith and commitment. The story of Mary, therefore, is not built on displays of power, but on the strength of a simple and decisive response to the unknown. Her journey suggests that, in many cases, the most lasting impact does not come from grand or visible actions, but from a fidelity sustained over time, even when the results are not immediately clear. This perspective continues to resonate across different contexts, inviting reflection on how seemingly small choices can take on profound meaning when sustained with consistency and purpose. When reflecting on her story, an unavoidable question arises: how should one respond to situations that demand trust without guarantees? Mary does not offer a formula or method, but an example of someone who, when faced with a reality beyond her understanding, chose to say yes and remained faithful to that decision until the end. That yes was not a single moment, but an ongoing process, renewed in different and often challenging circumstances. In this way, the story of the Virgin Mary remains relevant not only as a religious account, but also as a reflection on the human condition, on the relationship between freedom and responsibility, and on the ability to find meaning even in uncertainty. She did not seek prominence, but accepted her role in a greater story. In doing so, she became one of the most influential and remembered figures in history. If this story offered you a new perspective, consider following more content like this. Subscribing to the channel and leaving a like helps this message reach more people.